Welcome to my latest podcast. John Abendroth here, PGA golf professional, and joined today by Nancy McDaniel, the head golf coach for the women at UC Berkeley, and Ann Walker, the director of women's golf at Stanford University. Welcome, ladies, and thanks for having a few moments today. And look forward to catching up with you both.
You bet, John. Always a pleasure.
Good. Well, let me get a little sponsored thing out of the way first. We're brought to you today by Original Joe's of Westlake, and coming soon, they're Little Joe's in the West Portal District of San Francisco, and my friends at Baggy's Liquors in Burlingame since 1958, nearly a landmark, and as I like to say, eat and drink responsibly. So with the holidays coming up, those are good things to think about. Well, I thought this would be fun. We're not doing our radio program at this point, and I thought it would be fun to catch up with yourselves. I'm going to record the men's coaches tomorrow, and as I've done, put this up on YouTube and other platforms. But boy, so much to talk about. I'm sure there's so many talking points. I hope you each have 3 hours to chat this morning. So. And we'll start with you. And as I was just reading the newspaper, getting ready to go, great news about, and help me with the pronunciation, Z Wang, your fifth-year senior, has been picked as a Rhodes Scholar, following in the footsteps of the great late Grant Spaeth, who was a Rhodes Scholar as well. So congratulations on that honor for Miss Wang.
Yeah, thank you. It's been really exciting and really competitive process. I, of course, knew of the Rhodes Scholarship, but I had never had anyone go through the process of application. And boy, is it competitive. It's long. She endured the whole thing and got the call on Sunday. So we're just really excited for her. She's a very deserving winner. She's the epitome of student athlete. I mean, the kid has embraced every opportunity. She works harder than any player I've ever coached in every facet of her life. And to see her be rewarded with the Rhodes it's really heartwarming.
And I saw that she's going to study political science, and I believe Grant Spaeth went on to work in the Reagan administration. So boy, there's a lot of upside for Miss Wang going down the road. So
well, thanks for that tidbit. I actually didn't know that about Grant Spaeth, and obviously here at Stanford Golf, he's revered. We highly regard him. So sharing that with Emily, she's the type of player that will really enjoy hearing that. So thanks for sharing that.
And double check if Sandy Tatum was as well. I don't think so, but I'm pretty darn sure Grant was. So
there's big footsteps to follow in.
Exactly right. And Nancy, both of you, but Nancy, I did some homework on your players, and Ann mentioned before we came on the air, she's got a couple of women on campus. How about yourself? Have you got part of your team here and part home, or what's happening with your team in this unusual time that we're living in?
Gosh, well, first of all, backing up to Emily, I think it's really cool that we started with that in this whole conversation, that someone of that academic stature can hold down the rigor of women's golf and the traveling. And I don't know, I just think that's really fun. So congrats, Ann, and please tell Emily congrats. And as far as we go, we've got 3 players on campus, but Cal made a decision to cancel the fall seasons per Berkeley, city of Berkeley, and some of the things going on over there with our campus being closed. So we're, as coaches, not allowed to work with them or see them. And we can do that on Zoom. We can do that as a team and individually look at their stats and help them on those things. But it's kind of a weird time with that they could be going to their facilities that they have relationships with on their own, but we can't trigger status of student athlete at Cal for the fall sports. And us being considered a fall and spring sport, we're just not able to see them. So it's been a little different. But that said, you can sure get a lot done and do some things on their stats and have them, as they're playing, ask for help and do some things that way. And that's what we've been doing.
And you know, the two universities have, you know, a bit of a different profile in that, if I follow it correctly, that, you know, Nancy, yours is a public institution, you know, state institution, and then Stanford being private. You know, other than obviously your local protocols for safety, you've got your own, you know, ownership or boards of directors of the universities that have it. So it makes it interesting. And again, I did a little bit of homework, and Nancy, your team represents Spain, Taipei, South Korea, Southern California, Sweden, Colombia. So my goodness, talk about an international presence. When I thought about, gee, are the players going home, you know, to communicate with them and know what they're doing, makes it that much more of a challenge.
Yeah, try a Zoom call. Try scheduling a Zoom call. I think that's been our biggest job, is the scheduling of those. So you have to do 7 a.m. And then work around their classes. They finally came back to us and were like, do we have to do 7 a.m. on a Saturday? We kind of want to, you know, be able to sleep in a little bit, and we have to get up on Mondays anyway. So what about 7 a.m.? And that hits Taipei the next day. That hits Spain later in the afternoon, Colombia right around, you know, mid-morning, and then all the California and domestics can be on right at 7 a.m. So it's kind of a challenge in itself.
Well, I have my own experience with time zones. I traveled to Australia in 1976 to play their golf tour, and I crossed the international date line on my birthday. So I don't know how old I am. That's so.
I love it.
Lost count somewhere along the way.
So I don't know if that makes me a year younger, a year older, or just whatever. So and you know, same context for you. I see Belgium, Texas, Tennessee, Germany, and China. So my goodness, you guys are sort of in the same sort of profile of international players.
Yeah, very reflective of the women's game, I think, in general, at all levels. It's a really international game. And for us, we've had all our players here in the United States, except for one player chose to go home to Germany. So we've been able to communicate a little more readily just based on time zones. It's been easier, but Stanford did open up for international students and house them on campus. And most of our international students took the opportunity.
And back to Nancy, and I'll ask the same question, I guess, for both of you. What does the future hold? And I guess, you know, the cliche that I keep hearing is, you know, we don't know what we don't know. And so is the spring, is the conference and the schools sort of thinking about opening up play into the spring? I know the big game is Friday, if it happens, which has been an amazing thing. I know one of the teams, they could play, but the other team couldn't. So they were shopping around with other teams in the league and the football world to see who they could play a game against. So what do you see in both the maybe intermediate and long-term future, Nancy?
Well, I've kind of adapted the whole day by day, you know, feeling, and not getting our players all worked up about doing something that they may not, you know, may change 3 or 4 times in the next, you know, 6 weeks. So we've really put off that meeting about coming back. And I think we'll probably do that the first week of December. That said, in my mind, until they say we're not, we are coming back. And our players are planning to come back the first week of January and to start their physicals. It's about a 10-day process with doing physicals and sequestering, testing, coming back in. And 10 days later would be about January 15th, which is around the time that they're starting school. So there are plans. I mean, things like our Colombian player, she didn't have a visa appointment till October. So she decided to stay in Colombia and do online learning, which was a really good decision. And now she's got her visa, she's settled, and she feels good about coming back. Things could change, and, you know, we could be back to square one where we are now. But until they tell us we're not, we're planning and having the players plan that they're coming.
Yeah, you know, and same context for you. And boy, when you guys signed on as coaches, this wasn't, even on page 11 of the manual. So boy, you learn as you go.
Actually, 90% of coaching is not in the manual that needs.
Well put.
She needs to update her manual for assistant coaches. I'm with Nance. I think we've just kind of learned like day by day. One thing that I'm paying attention to is what happens in the basketball world. I think we all know football is a different beast. It's run by a different governing body. But the NC2A men's and women's basketball, they're trying very hard to get those up and running off the ground. And so just paying attention there, I think, is important, because that's going to be a key element to not just golf going forward, but all our NC2A sports going forward in the spring.
We're joined by, excuse my phone there. I thought I had that turned off, so I'll do that now. Boy, what an unprepared person I am. So, that
Very
was
real.
Yeah, that was the voice of Ann Walker, the director of women's golf at Stanford University, and also joining us, Nancy McDaniel with the Cal Bears women's golf program. And it's interesting that in professional sports, not so much the college scene, because college golf has been less visible or not visible at all compared to, for example, football. But professional sports, golf has been kind of the highlight. They seem to have been able to operate their schedule pretty well without fans in most cases. And they've had a fairly complete season once they sort of got going in June, once they figured out, how it would all go. And Nancy, back to, the NCAA and the conference here, I assume that they'd kind of keep an eye on what professional sports are doing as well.
They will. And the only piece of it that is a question mark, I think, for us coaches is the travel piece. And in our case, we do practice off campus. And so when you're talking about half of your team not having their license or a car, and needing to get 20 minutes down the road to a place, and in a car, in a group of people that they don't necessarily live with, it starts to get complicated. And so when we had our travel meeting, it was kind of comical. They were saying, we were saying, we need a couple minivans. We'll probably need an extra car, maybe. But they said that we needed a minivan for 2 people. We weren't allowed to be in actual cars. 2 people weren't allowed. So we were going to go on the road with 5 players, 2 coaches. Half of the players don't have a license, and then we're supposed to do what to get them from place to place safely. And so I don't know what's going to happen there. There's a big question mark, and maybe we start and we navigate and see what happens. And then the question of, do you want to see what happens? Do you want to send your child back here to see what happens? So there's some questions that probably need to be answered. But you're right, golf is a sport that's going great guns, and we'd like to see it happen, but not at the expense of our players.
Yeah, and I guess on the same context here, and something I was thinking about, sort of what baseball did was they didn't travel as much. Like the Giants didn't go to New York to play. They would play more games against Arizona, Los Angeles, Oakland. And I envision more regional or local competitions when we get going, rather than traveling to like the Tavistock Cup in Florida or to Chicago from the West Coast. Am I right in that regard, that when you do get going, it'll probably be more local competitions?
I would think so. We have our Pac-12 meeting next week, but I know as within our conference, that's how our coaches are thinking. We're trying to be proactive and set up a schedule that is probably going to be more digestible by the conference leaders, not getting on planes, like you say, and traveling across the country. And then selfishly, I'm not sure I want to do that, because when you look at the quarantine rules, like Nancy said, yes, once we're on the course, we're safely competing, but all the back and forth and all the logistics of getting there, we're actually in a very close contact sport. I just read Stanford football, and I'm sure Cal's the very same. Everywhere they're going, and I saw Clemson too. I think it took 8 buses to get them down to Florida State last weekend, because every kid has to have their own row. Then there has to be an open row. Then they have to have their own row. So when you translate that into golf, if we have a positive case, because of the close nature of our transport, there's a chance our whole squad is out for 2 weeks. When you're looking at squeezing into the spring what we need to compete in to be eligible for postseason, we can't afford 2 weeks. So I know for me and my assistant Maddie, we've been noodling on how do we switch things up? How do we practice? How do we train differently so that it's more isolating in general from a logistical standpoint to hopefully avoid that positive case that takes out the whole squad for 14 days.
Yeah, and Nancy, last golf topic for you, and then we'll touch on football in a couple of minutes as we have done in the past. This must throw recruiting into a whole new realm of, what are the high school kids thinking? What are they doing? What are they planning? And we don't need to get into obviously individual players and things, but in general, what do you see on the recruiting front?
Gosh, I really feel for this 22 class and maybe even the 23. I was on the phone with a 22 recruit, and she on the day that they just extended to April 30 for the dead period. And so that poor young woman who was thinking she's coming on some visits maybe in the spring to some of the schools has shut that down now until maybe May. So yeah, you just feel for this class of 22, but I think if everybody's consistently having a good feel for who they are, and you get some videos, the things that you can do within the rules, the videos of the campuses. I mean, we have these things like we have to see them play. We have to have them on campus. Some of the things that the guidelines that we've governed our recruiting around have kind of now started to take a back seat, and you have to do what you have to do as far as getting to know these young women. I think there's just more Zoom calls and more, and they understand that. And I don't know. What are you doing, Ann?
Yeah, no, I agree with Nancy. And I think oftentimes recruits end up in places where they're enamored by the school and the golf program, but then the relationship piece is missed. In Zoom and what we're going through right now is really putting at the forefront the relationship with the coach and the players. And is that a situation where you can thrive and grow? And I think that's actually a little bit of a positive that's coming out of it in that sense. It's on our end, it's hard because we can't watch them play. So I feel like we have a lot of coaches right now just taking flyers on kids, but it's our only option. So.
And one thing I could envision is that, a young adult wants to enter a college, but to know, if they have a chance of playing. So, when they go through the recruiting process, if they can't get an assurance that they're going to be part of a team, then they're going to head off to another school. So, it really puts both of you and the students in a real precarious position. So, very, very odd. So, Nancy, let's switch to football, and I guess we'll get a pick from you, and we don't have the. I will figure out a way to put out the results. We'll put that out on Facebook and Twitter. But any football thoughts on your side?
Well, my scouting has been very low with the lack of football and not being able to walk by the stadium and see how they're doing. But I'll still say, of course, that the Bears will take them 21-7.
Very good. Very even numbers. Not a real exciting game, it sounds like. So.
I should be betting if they're going to play or not, but we don't bet, of course. That shouldn't come out of my mouth.
But I was almost going to say that was, what's your prediction, play or not play? So, and I've seen where some sports are going to virtual games, and I was clicking around the other day, and there was like a car race, and I said, wait a minute, that doesn't look quite right. And it turned out it was like a video game they were showing on network TV. It's like, really?
NC2A gymnastics, John, they've decided to go all virtual for their season.
Wow.
Because they actually don't have to travel. They have the same equipment and apparatus wherever they go. And so they will have judges that watch them and score them on Zoom, and they'll have meets. So I think that's kind of a neat idea, actually.
God, it
So it's
is.
not where they turn them into an avatar, but it's the actual person in their own gym.
Yeah. Yeah, the actual NC2A gymnastics meets will be held virtually.
Wow, that's
Love it.
yeah. Golf would have a hard time with that, with the differences in weather and golf holes and
Yeah,
what's the
definitely. I'd like to play Nancy virtually. I think that's probably the only way I could beat her these days. She's playing so much.
Easy.
Clubs back there. She's so good. She only needs 4 clubs now.
Just 4.
and just to let the folks know a couple things that Anne played on Nancy's team, was an assistant coach, and then moved across the bay to be the head golf person, golf coach, and director of golf now at the Stanford program. So that's why these two get along so well. And I want to comment on my green shirt in that I need to be neutral. And I think you've probably heard my story, but my father went to Stanford University and medical school. My brother went to Cal, and my wife holds diplomas from both. So I have to be completely neutral. I could have worn purple for Weber State University where I attended. And as I've said in the past, that I need to watch the game on Treasure Island. So that's my woeful story. And how about you? A little quick football, and we'll let you on to your day here.
I'm feeling 24-21.
24-21. And I
Yeah.
assume that's a Stanford victory.
Yes, sir.
All right, very good. Ladies, thank you so much. And again, you guys are awesome inspirations for our young adults that in the golf world, even if they don't end up playing for you or in this area, that you guys do a great job, and you've got great programs, and appreciate spending some time with you, and glad to hear that you and your families are doing well, and we'll see you down the line, as we say, and appreciate your time this morning.
You bet. And thank you, John. Happy Thanksgiving to you and everybody out there.
All right, very good. And Ann, thank you so much, and we'll see you soon on the farm.
Yes, we will. Look forward to it.
All right.
Guys.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.